Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell icon.
Hello viewers, if you are new to my channel, you will not actually understand most of what we do in this video without having watched the previous video. This is part 2 of part 4 of Act 1 Scene 1, The Merchant of Venice. We would request you to go watch the first part and then come right back. We will be waiting for you. And those who are actually here, let's begin. In the previous video we had seen that Antonio was sad and he had told that the cause of my sadness is not my merchandise. Although we had Salarino and Salarino trying their very best to impose their opinion on Antonio, saying that everyone would be sad and that is why you are also sad thinking about your merchandise. And he had given exact reasons why he is not sad about his merchandise. He had said that his ventures are in not one bottom trusted, it is not to one place, nor is the whole estate, the whole fortune, the whole business depending on the profits or the returns of that present year. And after having given these 3 points, he had said, I am not sad because of my merchandise. Now, once he said it, Salarino then asks, why then are you in love? To which Antonio astonishingly reacts in a very surprising manner. He says, fie, shame. How can I be in love? As if that sort of a reaction. And Salarino says, not in love neither? How is it possible? You're not in love neither? Then let us say you are sad because you are not merry. And it were as easy for you to laugh and leap and say you are merry because you are not sad. Now he is playing with words now. He's trying his best to somehow cheer his friend up. So he's saying, let me say this way then. You are sad because you are not happy. And you are not happy because you are not sad. It is like asking a child, why is it raining outside? And the child says, it is raining outside because it is not sunny. So you ask the same child, okay, fine, I understood. Why is it now sunny outside? The child says, it is sunny because it is not raining. Right? So something like that. It is like a very, kind of humorous, sort of playful dialogues, conversations that they are trying to engage. Why? Because they have still not known why Antonio is actually sad. And then he gives the example. He says, now, Salarino says, now by two-headed Janus, nature hath framed strange fellows in her time. By two-headed Janus, what does he mean? Janus is the Roman god and who was kept at the gates and the doors. Janus was always placed above doorways with one head looking inward and the other head looking outward. Thus, the reference to Janus is used here. It says, by two-headed Janus, nature hath framed strange fellows in her time, strange men in her time. And then he gives examples, what kind of strange men they are. He says, there are some that will evermore peep through their eyes. Evermore peep through their eyes means they will laugh so much that their eyes will pop out and laugh like parrots at a bagpiper, because they will laugh so much, laugh at a silly thing like a pipe of the bagpiper, that their eyes will pop out after having laughed so much. And then he says there are another type of people who are of such vinegar aspect, sour expression, so serious, mellow, and very, very sad and serious, somber looking, that they will not show their teeth in the way of smile. They will not at all smile. They are always serious, and they will not at all smile, even though Nestor swear the jest be laughable. Now Nestor was someone who was a Greek hero, a Greek warrior who was old and wise, and it was very, very difficult for people to make Nestor laugh. He would laugh, but for him to laugh, the joke, the jest had to be really, really funny. Now, there is this joke. Even if Nestor himself would have said this joke is laughable, there are those sort of people, the other type of men with with vinegar aspect, sour temperament, that they will not laugh at the jokes which even Nestor would have laughed. Means drawing out the two contrasts. One, always laughing, idiotic, stupid. Without any reason, there is laughter. And another one, when there should be laughter, when there is reason for people to laugh, even then these people don't laugh. The two types of men whom nature hath created. Very, very important for exams. All these descriptions, comparisons. Now, Salarino says, here comes Bassano, most noble kinsman, and Gratiano and Lorenzo also. So there are three individuals coming on to the stage, and Salarino kind of welcomes them. Here he comes, and look at how he describes Bassano, a little differently to the way he describes Gratiano and Lorenzo. What does he say about Bassano? He says that he is your most noble kinsman. Now, who is you? You is Antonio here. And he says, your most noble kinsman, Bassano, is coming. And what is kinsman? Kinsman is relative, someone whom you are related to. There is intentional use of this word. It shows the kind of friendship that they share. They are almost as close as relatives, as brothers maybe. Right? Salarino says, Gratiano and Lorenzo, yes, fare you well. We leave you now with better company. Fare you well. Because they are coming, we will now take leave and go. Why? Because Antonio has better company in the form of these new friends that have now come. To which Salarino says, I would have stayed till I had made you merry. Don't you think that I am escaping? I would definitely had made you merry, means erased the sadness that has gripped you, if worthier friends had not prevented me. So he's slightly kind of pulling their leg. Had Gratiano, Lorenzo and Bassano not come now, I would definitely have made you merry. To which Antonio says, your worth is very dear in my regard. Come on. Don't you degrade yourself in my eyes. I consider you as worthy as them, he says. And then he also sportingly, jokingly says, I take it, I understand it very well. Don't you play games with me. I understand it, that your business calls on you. There is some work that you are reminded of. Your business calls on you and you embrace the occasion to depart. You were not able to depart suddenly, right? Because what would you say? Your friend is sad. Would you just leave your friend and go? No. But because you have been reminded of your work and you see three other friends coming, so you take this occasion, this excuse to now slowly cut off from there. And which Antonio very well understands. So that is why he kind of replays the humor and the sarcasm that Salarino and Salarino wanted to kind of initiate. Okay? Now, finally, the three characters, Bassano, Lorenzo and Gratiano, enter the stage. So whatever has happened, these 4-5 lines of communication, it was without them on stage. So what is it doing? The audience is now awaiting. Okay, there is Bassano coming, there is Gratiano. Where are they? Where are they? They have not yet come. Where are they? And we hear Antonio and Salarino talking about these characters. So it is developing a sort of curiosity. The audiences want to know, who is Bassano? Okay, the three of them have entered. Which one is Bassano? Which one is Gratiano? They want to know now. See the vital, the nature of the opening scene. It is kind of unfolding all the characters and putting them in their proper holes. Right? Salarino says to the three friends, good morrow, good lords. He says, good morning. Bassano reacts, oh, good seniors both, when shall we laugh? Say when. Now, the first to respond is Bassano. And the lines that he speaks is kind of very evident of his character, of his personality. He is a very happy-go-lucky, a very reckless, a very careless sort of a character. We'll come to know in the later scenes. In fact, in this scene itself, in the later half, when he talks about how he has been in tremendous crisis because he is now taken money from people and is not able to repay them. So he is always trying to seek luxury, seek happiness. And as soon as he sees his friends, he says, when shall we laugh? When shall we have those good times? When shall we make merry? He says. Say when, tell me. You grow exceeding strange. Must it be so? He asks Salarino and Salarino. Must it be that we have now grown strangers, as if we don't see each other? When shall we sit together and actually laugh, actually make merry, have a good time? He asks. Salarino reacts, saying, we'll make our leisures to attend on yours. Well, we will make ourselves available when you have the time. See, there is a lot of kind of leg pulling going on between friends. It kind of sets the tone for the play. We will see these friends sticking to Antonio, sticking to each other throughout the play. So it was necessary. These scenes, these conversations were necessary. It kind of sets the tone for what is expected later on. Then exeunt, Salarino and Salanio. When two characters, more than two characters, exit the stage together, we say it is exeunt. And Lorenzo speaks. He says, my Lord Bassano, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you. Who are we two? Gratiano and Lorenzo. This also exemplifies the kind of bonding that Bassano and Antonio share, where Lorenzo and Gratiano feel they are like outsiders in that same bracket, where Bassano and Antonio is present. Why? Because they want them to talk it out, to see that if at all it is possible to kind of lessen Antonio's sadness, cause of sadness. He says, since you have found Antonio, we too will leave you. But, there is a reminder, but at dinner time, I pray you, have in mind where we must meet. Do remember the time and the place where we are supposed to meet at dinner time. I will not fail you, Bassano says. Gratiano says, you look not well, Signor Antonio. Now, Bassano is there. I will not fail you. And then Gratiano is there also, and he talks to Antonio. What happened? You don't look well. What is it? What is the problem? There is this concerned friend. And Gratiano is someone who talks a lot. When it is not required, he'll open his mouth. And there is no kind of control. There is no latch to his verbal kind of utterances. He goes on and on and on. So he asks Antonio, you don't look well. What happened? Well, you have too much respect upon the world. You think too much about worldly matters, Antonio, Gratiano tells him. They lose it that do buy it with much care. Those who concern themselves too much with the world often stand to lose a lot. They often stand behind everyone else. Why? Because they are so very concerned about everything else in the world, he says. Believe me, you are marvelously changed. So these lines show that their friends again and again are saying that Antonio has marvelously changed. So for the audiences, it is clear that something terribly wrong is there in Antonio's mind, Antonio's head. Right? Antonio says, I hold the world but as the world. I see the world the way the world is to be seen, he says. The way the world is, Gratiano. And how is the world? He says, the world is a stage where every man must play a part. He compares the world to be a stage. And What happens on stage? People come, perform, enact, and go back. So he says, it is a stage where every man must perform a part. There is a compulsion for every man to perform one part, one role. And he says, and mine is a sad one. This reminds me of Shakespeare's very famous poem, All the World's a Stage, and all men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. And one man in his time plays many, many parts. That's the 7 ages of man. It's also known as the 7 ages of man. Very, very beautiful poem by William Shakespeare again. So, anyway, I digressed a little bit. Getting back to this, he says, world is a stage and we are all characters. And unfortunately or fortunately, I do not know, but mine is a sad one. I have a sad character to play. He says, Gratiano then reacts, saying, fine, let me play the fool then. And what is a fool? Fool is that of a comic character, a jester who tries his best to make people laugh. That is his role. And Gratiano, I told you, is very, very vocal, very, very, extrovert sort of a character who is constantly talking nonsense most of the times. So he says, let me play the fool then. And he says, very important, with mirth and laughter, let old wrinkles come. Mirth and laughter, joy and happiness, and laughter, smiles. Let old wrinkles come. What are wrinkles? When we smile this way, our faces have these wrinkles, these creases, the skin folds. So he says, old wrinkles come. Antonio used to be happy once. Now he is no more happy. Now there is no more happiness for him to laugh and smile. So he says, I will play the jester, the clown, the fool, and because of my jokes, because of my mannerisms, my antics, let old wrinkles come, means let old laughter come. Then he says, let my heart rather heat with wine than let my liver rather heat with wine than my heart cool with mortifying groans. Now he says, let me heat my liver with wine rather than my heart cool with mortifying groans. It was believed back in the Elizabethan age that if you cry and if you groan, you are actually kind of extracting blood out from your heart. You're weakening it. Whereas if you drink wine and warm your body, you are recharging itself with wine and making it a lively, warmer kind of a personality. Okay? Why should a man whose blood is warm within sit like a grandsire cut in alabaster? He asks. There is a question, rhetoric going on. He says, why should a man whose blood is warm within, means who is energetic, who is lively, sanguine inside as a person, why should he sit like a grandfather's statue cut in alabaster, which does not move, which does not respond? Right? So he asks this. And grandsire, grandfather. Alabaster, white marble, stone. So, sleep when he wakes. Why should he sleep where he should actually wake and be active? And creep into jaundice by being peevish. Jaundice is a disease where the skin turns yellow. And peevish by being a bad-tempered man, by always being complaining and keeping a grudge with everything. Why being peevish? Why be of an ill-tempered man, ill-tempered kind of... Then he says, I tell thee what, Antonio, I love thee, and it is my love that speaks. So he was saying all this, examples, one after the other. Then he remembers something. So he stops and says, well, let me tell you, Antonio, I'm saying all this because I love you, and it is my love that is speaking. Then he again goes forward. He says, there are sort of men, there are these types of men whose visages are faces, do cream and mantle like a standing pond. There is a scum that kind of generates and settles on the top of a pond that is long standing. He says there are people whose faces are like that of a standing pond, the scum that gathers on a pond. Do cream and mantle cover up like a standing pond, means expressionless, emotionless. He says, and do a willful stillness entertain. These faces of theirs, they intentionally remain silent. Willfully, they remain still. They do not talk. Why? Because they want with purpose to be dressed in an opinion of wisdom, gravity, and profound conceit. Profound conceit means great intellect, because they do not talk, they do not express, they do not emote, because they want themselves to be seen as someone having real great personality, great intellect, and considered to be very wise. Wait, and then he says, as who should say, as if they would say, I am Sir Oracle, and when I open my lips, let no dog bark. Means he's trying to say that Sir Oracle was a person who conveyed messages from gods. This is Greek, ancient Greek mythology. This is allusion that we are taking to. Now he says, I am Sir Oracle. I am like Sir Oracle who has brought messages from God, and when I open my lips, do not talk, let there be no sound, and let no dog bark, he says, as if to say, okay, oh my Antonio. Now this is Gratiano's perception, this is Gratiano's explanation. He said, oh my Antonio, I do know of these that therefore only are reputed wise for saying nothing, when I am very sure if they should speak, would almost damn those ears which hearing them would call their brothers fools. He says, I know these men, Antonio, who are only reputed, they have earned the reputation of being wise and of great intellect because they keep their mouths shut. They do not speak. But he says, I am very, very sure if they speak, what will happen? The listeners would call them fools and so be damned, he says. I'll tell thee more of this another time. He was going on and on and on, as if there was no kind of stopping him. So he stopped himself and he said, fine, I'll tell you more about this some other time, but fish not with this melancholy bait. Bait is that worm or that small insect or that small fish that you attach at the end of a fishing rod and dip it in the water. The fish comes and latches onto it, and that is how you manage to catch hold of a big fish. That is bait and fishing. So he says, fish not with a melancholy bait. Melancholy means sad, sadness. He says, do not fish with sadness as the bait. Why? Because all you will catch, all you will attract is more sadness. Metaphoric, wonderful, wonderful kind of comparisons. For this poor gudgeon, this opinion, now gudgeon is a small worthless fish, which is very easy to catch. All that will attract is this. And the metaphoric explanation is all that you will attract is sadness. Why? Because you are fishing with a melancholy bait. Then, come good Lorenzo, fare you well a while. I'll end my exhortation after dinner. Now this suggests, this proves his character, the things that I was saying about him. He says, I am not yet done. I am not yet finished. Exhortation, good advice. The advice that I am giving you, I will only finish after dinner. Till then, come, fare you well, he says. Lorenzo says, well, we'll leave you then till dinner time. I must be one of these dumb, wise men, for Gratiano never lets me speak. See, this is where there is so much of humor being extracted from these conversations. Gratiano had just talked about these people who were dumb. Why? Because they wanted to present this sense of wisdom around them. And Lorenzo says, when I am with Gratiano, Gratiano does not let me talk. So it seems I am like one of those wise men who are dumb. right? So because Gratiano never lets me speak, Gratiano says, well, keep me company for 2 years more. Give me company, stay with me for 2 more years. Thou shalt not know the sound of thine own tongue. You would have forgotten the sound of your own voice, own tongue, he says. So very sporting, joking. They're pulling each other's legs and no one is actually taking offense. Antonio says, farewell, I'll grow a talker for this year. Now, Antonio is quite kind of, exhausted to be a part of this elaborate kind of conversation between them. And he says, fine, I'll take your advice and I'll start talking more, he says. Gratiano says, thanks. In faith, for silence is only commendable in neat's tongue dried. See, he does not stop. He says, silence is only praiseworthy, commendable in a dried ox's tongue. Because your tongues are not dried and it is not as dry as an ox's tongue, please do speak, he says. Exeunt Gratiano and Lorenzo. After this comes Antonio's and Bassano's really important speeches, important conversations, which are very, very central to what the play is all about. All the next few lines and sentences left in the speech. Now, before I end this video, if you have watched this lesson till here and you feel it is worth it, then please like, share and subscribe, because you know how YouTube works. I want to reach as many as possible so that as many as possible all over India, all over the world can be benefited from these lectures and not just restrained to the handful few who are watching. So please like, share, comment and show your kind of, love the way you can, and that is by exactly doing this and nothing else. I said you to do this not in the beginning of the video but here, because I feel those who have watched on till the very end would actually understand my kind of plea, my perception. Thank you. We'll meet you in the next video.